right, and here we go again. It should say every time it's coming in, here we go. But it's been going for almost 2 days now. And one of the things for those of you who have been watching or listening for the 2 days, I continue to say the jazz music is playing and the smoothie machine is behind us. And for the first time, I got my smoothie. I said, I'll go get one, tiki cup and all. So if you're around this podcast area, come over, say hi, and grab a smoothie. I should see if they want to sponsor the podcast. That'd be a smart move if I knew what was going on. So, as I said, here we go. And speaking of partners, the Avid headsets have been a great addition. So thank you, Avid, for your work and your partnership as well. So here we go, and we're going to welcome in our next guest, Tim. So for those who don't know you or your story or your journey, fill us in.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me today, Matt. It's an honor to be here, and this is my second FETC I've been to. So I'm a high school teacher and a technology specialist based in New Jersey. I teach in Lyndhurst, which is a town about 20 minutes outside of New York. And so in my role, I both teach English classes, specifically freshman English, public speaking, and advanced public speaking. And then I also go to conferences like this, and I bring back information for my staff and do professional development sessions and things like that. So I'm actually here with two of my coworkers who are also tech specialists in my district. I'm the high school tech specialist, and then Jen Lambert is the middle school tech specialist, and then Felicia Lott is the elementary. So we're very lucky to be here and not only speaking, but also learning over the next couple of days.
Awesome. So you mentioned you did some classwork on public speaking?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So for pure selfish question, because I'll be presenting tomorrow, what are some of the tips you would give students to do that?
That's a good question. And I tell them that the number one thing is have something that you're speaking about that you care about. You don't have to pretend to be passionate about it at all. And I know that you're passionate about what you're speaking about, so I don't think you have to worry about that. And then also just remember that you're in command of the room and just have fun with it, really.
Absolutely. And I think having that opportunity gives students that courage to speak up, to be self-advocates. And then because in all the work that they do, there's going to be that collaboration. There's going to be some communication. So how do you bridge that gap to have students become advocates for themselves?
So, I mean, it really starts in the beginning of the school year because we start off with some low stakes activities where they're getting to know each other. We do some things where we go around the room and some basic icebreakers and things like that. But then also, again, I just stress to them, this class is for you to share the things that you care about. And it's not just, you want to have good mannerisms and things like that, but they should use it as a forum to express the things that they want to share with everybody else. So I also bring in different ways to make presentations a bit more creative. We actually have brought in podcasting to our public speaking classes. And I mean, it's a good way to sort of bring it up to the modern era, and you can enforce a lot of those public speaking skills in this more sort of digital format. And, they can add things like music, they can add sound effects. So that allows them to go even more creative than sort of a traditional just stand and deliver presentation.
So you talk about the podcasting and you talk about having students do it, but it's also what you shared here. I know it was yesterday, so we can't promote it coming up, but for those who didn't have a chance to attend your session, what are some of the things that you talk about to share with the people that attend?
Sure. So yesterday I presented as part of the Mobile Mega Share. So it was an event that had a room with 34 different tables that had different tech tools and different methods and things like that. And I presented with Serena Dewey, who works for Soundtrap. And we basically were able to share some technical stuff like the tools that we use and software platforms, things like that. But then it was a whole session on just the process of podcasting, from planning to editing to recording. And it was really great. We got to meet a lot of teachers and educators from all over the place. And really one of the big things that we stress the most is that podcasting doesn't need to be this like really, really intimidating thing. You don't have to jump in with, professional quality microphones and things like that. Instead, it could be just simple audio recording, and you can work your way up from there. So there's not, a huge barrier to get into podcasting. And I mean, that's just a short gist of it, but really that was our main message, was if you're interested in podcasting, no matter what your capacity is as a teacher or an educator, even an administrator or a coach, you can bring it in through all different avenues. So we shared some of those methods.
All right, so I think I'm turning this into just a personal Q&A for me. So I asked you about public speaking. The natural next question, since I'm doing this now for 2 days and continue to do the Stronger Together podcast, what would be some tips for me as a new podcaster, or I don't even know if I'm a podcaster or someone who talks on screen and records each other, but what would be some tips for me, selfishly? What can I do?
The biggest thing that I see with students, particularly when they're presenting, is this tendency to rush and to speed up. Public speaking tends to be a situation where you maybe don't feel 100% comfortable. And by the way, when I say you, I don't mean you, I mean the royal you, just everybody. But
no, I'm okay. I asked about me, so that's fine.
But a lot of times, a lot of things that people dread when they're speaking, such as stuttering, falling over words, forgetting what they're saying, a lot of that comes to just wanting to go quickly, wanting to rush. And the people are afraid of pausing and slowing down and just taking a breath. And doing that just in the middle of a session or when you're speaking, it's really helpful, not just for you as a speaker, but also for the audience to just sort of register what you've been talking about. And I mean, a lot of times with podcast recording and with presentations, I see people who they're rushing because they just want to make sure they get to everything, or they're not super comfortable. And then a lot of times that can lead to some of those gaffes, and taking a breath and pausing is a huge helpful piece of advice.
And I think that's great, because I do try to overtalk sometimes or fill in that dead air. And I think that's definitely something I will try to do. And I'll have a lot of practice today. We're going to be live all day. Sometimes I just get excited, so I talk a little bit fast, and I just want to know things. Like, I'm just asking you purely selfish questions now. But how would you bring this into schools? So you're doing this into schools. You've incorporating it with students. For all of the building leaders out there, or teachers who want to bring it into a classroom, how would you recommend that?
So the first thing I would recommend is just to be open to it. It can seem like a really huge endeavor with, a lot of money that has to be spent, a lot of revamping of curriculum, like we need to add a podcasting class, and we need to build out a studio and things like that. But that doesn't have to be the first step. Students, most of them have, a cell phone. A lot of students will have a Chromebook, an iPad, things like that. And if they have that, and they have, like a sweatshirt they can put over their device to prevent echo a little bit, they can start recording podcasts. And just taking that first step is really important. And then I'm extremely lucky, because I mentioned I teach public speaking, but I also teach advanced public speaking, which has transformed into just a podcasting class. And that's all that we do in it. And with that, I have the freedom to have students choose to present on anything they want. And it seems like I've gotten some comments like, oh, like, what's the structure of it? And there is a structure, but you can still have students have that agency and that voice, and still have it be meaningful and meet standards, and have, things like that. So just that intimidation, just to take the first steps would be the first thing.
What are some of the topics that they do podcasts about?
So when they're presenting, oh my gosh, there are so many. So last year we had a student do a whole podcast on the history of video games. So he brought in some of his friends, and they basically just talked about the beginning of video games, starting with, before Mario and then into the present day. So things that they're interested in, sort of informative settings like that. I did have a student last year who interviewed their parent about how they feel about mental health and sort of the generational issues between, the views on mental health from the younger generation to an older generation. And again, that's so personal. And I didn't tell them, you have to have something really personal to say. they decided they wanted to take that opportunity and use it to express something about their personal life. So those are two that are front of mind for me right now. We also, one of our final projects was we made a class mixtape. So on Anchor, which we use to publish it, they have a music and talk feature. So every student chose a song and had to record an intro with some background on the song. And that was a little artifact for them to bring into the future as well.
That's awesome. So if you want to learn more about Tim, about his work, his website is scrolling down below. Some great tips on there. I was checking it out. Now, speaking of tips or learning, you talked a lot about podcasting and public speaking. What are some of the other things you're looking to take away from FETC?
So I'm also the advisor of the robotics club in my high school. I like to, dip my feet all over the place. And I've always been interested in coding and web design and web development as well. And so I want to learn more about having a robust robotics program, especially if there are budget constraints. And then I'd love to learn more about, everybody wants to learn more about like AI and all of that as well, especially with the rise of, Chat GPT. And they're redoing the session from yesterday where they're talking more about it. So I'm hoping to catch that as well.
Awesome. And how about the vendor hall? Things like, when I was talking to Jan Wombles, he said it was almost a quarter mile.
I peeked in there yesterday, and it's wild. I know that last year when I was here at FETC, just as an attendee, when I got there, it was like walking into an amusement park. You're like running around. There are all these colorful booths and things like that. Two booths that I'm definitely going to go to is the Soundtrap booth, because like I said, I presented with my friend Serena, who works for Soundtrap, and that's my sort of go-to platform for podcasting. So they're doing some sessions with collaborating with Canva and Pear Deck. And then also I'm going to spend some time tomorrow morning at the Focusable booth, which is booth 1900 in the expo hall. And the team over there has been great developing a tool to sort of try to get students, educators, and everybody just to take a minute and, get some rest and relaxation and then focus on work. And their app has been awesome. And I'm psyched to talk to them and learn more about that as well.
Awesome. Have you been to FETC before?
I went last year.
Last year was your first time?
Yeah.
So what is something this year that you're going to do different than you did last year?
This year, I brought with me every day a little bag of snacks. So to make sure I have those on hand the whole time. I know last year, you get caught up in everything and sometimes you don't have time to run out and get a meal. So I adjusted that a little bit. And then also I'm trying to be a little less rigid and more open to things that organically come up, whether I'm walking somewhere to a session. If I run into someone who I know and I want to talk to, I can sort of adjust my schedule on the fly a little bit. But yeah, I'm trying to stay hydrated.
That's always a good thing. And I think that's really what I wanted to come out. So I appreciate that, because sometimes people come and do either too much or they leave and they're exhausted. They feel like they have to be so regimented. And I think having that flexibility is a great strategy for first timers.
Yeah, totally.
So where do you go outside of events to get your learning?
So I go to some other conferences in New Jersey. They have the NJECC conference, but then also I'm pretty active on Twitter, and so I communicate with people on there. People share resources, and I keep an open mind. I keep my eyes open, and if something comes up, I jump in and try to learn as much as I can.
Awesome. And a lot that you've talked about have been around collaboration. So one of the things I always ask the people who come on here, especially because it's the name of the show, but what does Stronger Together mean to you?
For me, we all have our own interests, and then we have some things that maybe might be something that we're not too interested in or is not a strength for us. And other people can fill those gaps and then also sort of light fires in us that we didn't have before if there's something you're interested in. So there might be something that you haven't thought of as something that you want to pursue. And when you're together with others, you can learn new things and then just be just better together, whether your goal is to accomplish something or just have a good time. And I think that's sort of what I'm thinking this year for this conference, coming with two of my coworkers and then also meeting people. I'm just trying to, drop my own preconceived notions and learn from as many people as I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, sharing all the things that you do check out Tim's website scrolling below. And if you're here over the next 2 days, stop by and say hi to him when you see him cruising by and ask about podcasting, public speaking, robotics, all the great things you're involved with.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt. This has been awesome. And I'm going to probably grab a tiki drink now after.
Look at that. Smoothies. I think we're going to have to sign them up for promotion or partnership.
Awesome.
All right, well, have a great rest of the event.
Thanks. You too.
All right, thanks.